Jai Mishnapat Paramansa Parivradikacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mishnapat Paramansa Parivradikacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22, The Marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Text number 20. Yataha abhavad vishvam idam vichitram. Yato bhavad vishwamidam vichitram. Yato bhavad vishwamidam vichitram. Samsthasyate yatra cha va avatishthate. Samsthasyate yatra cha va avatishthate. Samsthasyate yatra cha va avatishthate. Prajapatinam patihi eshaha mahyam. Prajapatinam patiresha mahyam. Prajapatinam patiresha mahyam. Param pramanam bhagavan anantaha. Param pramanam bhagavan anantaha. Param pramanam bhagavan anantaha. Yato bhavad vishwamidam vichitram. Samsthasate yatra cha vavatishthate. Prajapatina patiresha mahyam. Param pramanam bhagavan anantaha. Yato bhavad vishwamidam vichitram. Samsthasate yatra cha vavatishthate. Prajapatina patiresha mahyam. Param pramanam bhagavan anantaha. Yataha, from whom, abhavat, emanated, Vishwam, creation, idam, this, vichitram, wonderful, samsthasyate, will dissolve, yatra, in whom, cha, and, va, or, avatishthate, presently exists, prajapatina, of the prajapatis, patihi, the Lord, yeshaha, this, mahyam, to me, param, highest, pramanam, authority, Bhagavan, Supreme Lord, Anantaha, unlimited. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all Prajapatis. The personality is meant to produce living entities in this world. Kindly repeat. The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all Prajapatis. The personality is meant to produce living entities in this world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kardama Muni was ordered by his father, Prajapati, to produce children. In the beginning of creation, the Prajapatis were meant to produce the large population which was to reside in the planets of the gigantic universe. But Kardama Muni said that although his father was Prajapati, who desired him to produce children, actually his origin was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, because Vishnu is the origin of everything. He is the actual creator of this universe. He is the actual maintainer, and when everything is annihilated, it rests in him only. That is the conclusion of Srimad-Bhagavatam. For creation, maintenance, and annihilation, there are the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Shiva. But Brahma and Maheshwara are qualitative expansions of Vishnu. Vishnu is the central figure. Vishnu, therefore, takes charge of maintenance. No one can maintain the whole creation but he. There are innumerable entities and they have innumerable demands. No one but Vishnu can fulfill the innumerable demands of all the innumerable living entities. Brahma is ordered to create and Shiva is ordered to annihilate. The middle function, maintenance, is taken charge of by Vishnu. Kardama Muni knew very well, by his power in progressive spiritual life, that Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, was his worshipable deity. Whatever Vishnu desired was his duty and nothing else. He was not prepared to beget a number of children. He would beget only one child who would help the mission of Vishnu. As stated in Bhagavad-gita, whenever there is a discrepancy in the discharge of religious principles, the Lord descends on the surface of the earth to protect religious principles and to annihilate the miscreants. Marrying and begetting a child is considered to liquidate one's debts to the family in which one is born. There are many debts which are imposed upon a child just after his birth. There are debts to the family in which one is born, debts to the demigods, debts to the pitas, debts to the rishis, etc. But if someone engages only in the service of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who is actually worshipable, then even without trying to liquidate other debts, one becomes free from all obligations. Kardama Muni preferred to devote his life as a servant of the Lord in Paramahamsa knowledge and to beget a child only for that purpose, not to beget numberless children to fill up the vacancies in the universe. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्। Kardama Muni is concluding his talk with Swayambhuva Manu. Kardama Muni, having been ordered by Lord Brahma to create progeny, underwent tapasya for 10,000 years and propitiated Lord Vishnu. Vishnu personally appeared before him and he informed Kardama Muni that he had chosen the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu to become his wife so that she could help him suitably in the execution of his spiritual duties. Kardama Muni is also a Prajapati. He is the son of Brahmaji, the original Prajapati. Brahmaji's prime duty in this material world is to create this material world and populate it with the living entities, which according to their karma, they have to undergo various happiness and distresses in this material world. Now the question may arise that Kardama Muni, his motivation in propitiating Vishnu and to carry out the order of his father and spiritual master Brahmaji is to populate the world with living entities, and so his motivation in getting a wife was to create innumerable children, just like Daksha Maharaj and others had. Kashyapa Muni had innumerable children. But here, Kardama Muni is clarifying that Yeshaha Prajapatinam Patihi. Bhagavan Anantaha Mahyam Param Pramanam. He is saying that for me, my real authority, the real reason why I am marrying is because it is desired by the Supreme Lord himself, who is the Prajapatinam Patihi. He is the master of all the Prajapatis. That means he is the master of even Lord Brahma. Now, here what Kardama Muni is stating is that for him, his Param Pramanam, his ultimate authority is Lord Vishnu, not Brahmaji. Although Brahmaji is supposed to be his father, generally in this material world, we have people's sentiments that father and mother, Kankanda Daivam, they are our gods whom we can see with our eyes. And children are supposed to respect and treat their parents like father and mother like God. In other words, for them, the highest authority is the parents. Whatever they say, everybody has to follow. This is the general thinking. But Kardama Muni, we are seeing, he is going against that general accepted principle. Generally, of course, even in the Vedas, it is stated that one must serve one's parents without any reservation or hesitation. Whatever instructions they give, it has to be followed to the hilt. One must not say no to one's parents. These are the kind of instructions, and especially in their old age, the children must take care of the parents, they must serve them. All these instructions are there. Why? Because the parents are the source of our birth. They are the people who have given birth to us. Our existence is there because of them. Therefore, it's natural that we are obligated to serve them. But here, Kardama Muni is not an ordinary person. He is a Mahayogi. He has done austerities to please Lord Vishnu and had darshan, had personal audience with the Supreme Lord Vishnu directly. Not an ordinary person himself. Now he is saying that for me, it's not my father, but Lord Vishnu who is my supreme authority. Why? Because yataha idam vichitram vishvam abhavad yatra cha samsthasyate va avatishthate. Because it is from him, the Supreme Lord, from whom this world has been created, by whom it is being maintained, sustained, and in whom finally the universe will rest after annihilation. The Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the material manifestation that we see along with all the living entities. He is the supreme source. There are many secondary creators. Durga Devi also creates, Brahmaji also creates. But then the difference between their creation and the creation of Vishnu is Prajapati Nam Patihi. He is the creator of all the creators. He is the primary creator. And therefore, Kardama Muni is saying that Vishnu is the supreme authority. Vishnu's authority supersedes all other people's authorities, including one's parents. Because our parents may give birth to our body in this particular lifetime. Every time we take birth through a father and a mother, whether it is in the animal form of life or it is in the human form of life. We have taken innumerable births and we have got innumerable parents. Every lifetime the parents are changing. So how many parents will you be obligated to? The reality is, although the body which is temporary is given birth to by the parents, our eternal existence is coming from the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Just like saying that if there is a car, and let us say I've taken a car on rent. Now I'm using that car, a rented car, for driving around, going from place to place and carrying out my various works. So naturally, the person who has rented the car to me, I should be grateful to him. I should be thankful to him. But I cannot say that I should be more thankful to the car owner who has rented the car to me, which I am using for a few hours. Oh, this person is the owner of the car and he has given me his car for 1 or 2 days, and therefore he is greater person for me than even my parents. Can we say that? We cannot say that. Arey, that car has been given to you for 1 or 2 days, but your very primary existence is coming from your parents. So how can the car owner supersede your parents? Similarly, this body is also a car, a vehicle in which we are traveling around in this material world. And this car in which we are traveling, in this vehicle of the body which we are traveling around, is given to us by our parents temporarily for a few years. After that, we will occupy some other car, go around, finish the work, give that up, take on another car, and we keep going like this. But actually, who is the source of us, who has created us? That is Lord Vishnu. And so, therefore, the Supreme Lord Vishnu is the actual ultimate authority. And whenever somebody surrenders to that Supreme Lord, considering Him as one's everything, as one's all in all, then his position becomes highly glorified. Just like if we can look at the gopis. The gopis are celebrated all over the universe as the topmost devotees. Lord Brahmaji said that Shashti Varshani Sahasrani Maya Taptam Tapaha. Brahmaji said, I executed austerities for Shashti Varsha Sahasrani, for 60,000 years. I executed severe austerities. Maya Taptam Tapaha. I carried out severe tapasya austerities for 60,000 years. Very long period of time. For what purpose? Nanda Vraja Gopastrinam Padarenu to understand the glory of the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis of Nanda Vraja. And even after that 60,000 years of austerities, I could not understand the glory of the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis. Forget me, even Lakshmi Devi could not understand. This is what Brahmaji is saying. Similarly, Uddhava also. Uddhava carried Lord Krishna's message to Vrindavan Dham. Lord Krishna, after going from Vrindavan, Vraja to Mathura, after killing Kamsa, he sent back Nanda Maharaj saying that very soon I will come back. After giving little happiness to our relatives, Balram and I will come back. Now you please go back to Vraja. And he gave him a lot of gifts and all that and sent Nanda Maharaj and all the Gopas who had come to Vraja to witness Krishna's vanquishing of Kamsa. All the Vrajavasis went back. After that, immediately after that, because Krishna's Upanayana Samskara had not been done, Vasudeva saw to it that his Upanayana Samskara was done, and he was sent to the ashram of Sandipani Muni in Ujjain for getting educated. And there we know how in 64 days, Krishna and Balarama learned all the 64 arts. Shishi, Krishna, that means in about 2 months' time, they learned everything and they returned back to Mathura. The moment Krishna returned to Mathura, the first thing he did, 2 months after he returned from Ujjain to Mathura, the first thing he did was write a letter and send it to the gopis along with Uddhava. Because he knew the gopis and his parents and all the other Vrajavasis must be suffering from terrible pain of separation from him. And that is how Uddhava came to Vrindavan. The Lord, of course, in every pastime, he achieves multiple things. Another reason why Krishna sent Uddhava was because Uddhava was a great devotee. He was a great Ekanta Bhakta. He was a great devotee. Panchahayano, when he was 5 years old, his mother, he was playing with the deities of Radha and Krishna. At that time, his mother called him, "Come, my dear son, it's time for breakfast." Children, whenever they are playing, they become hungry, the mother calls, they'll immediately go. But then, even though his mother was calling and it was quite late for breakfast, still Uddhava did not like to go because he was absorbed in his devotional service to his deities of Krishna. That was the qualification, that was the devotion of Uddhava. Even at 5 years old, he was so devoted to Krishna. He was such a great Ekanta Bhakta. Now that Uddhava, because he was such a great devotee, he was a little proud of himself, or not proud, he considered himself that I am a great devotee of Krishna. The second reason why Krishna sent Uddhava, chose Uddhava to take his message to Vrindavan, was to show him who are the real devotees who are much, much greater than him. Uddhava brought Krishna's letter to Vrindavan. First he went and met Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, and he spoke to them. He narrated various activities of Krishna, and like that he tried to pacify Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai. After that he met the gopis, and he read out the letter which Krishna had sent. And this happened, as we all know, in Govardhan at Uddhava Kunda. And after reading out that letter, Uddhava was seeing the reaction of the gopis. How absorbed they were in Krishna, and practically they were going mad in separation from Krishna. When Uddhava saw the level of devotion of the Vrajavasis, whether it was Nanda Maharaj, whether it was Yashoda Mai, or it was the gopis, he was really stunned. He was completely taken by surprise, because he had never seen this kind of devotion to Krishna, especially that of the gopis. And after seeing them, after knowing about their love for Krishna, what did Uddhava say? Uddhava said, Asamaho charana renujusham aham syam vrindavane kimapi gulma lataushadhinam. He said, after seeing you people, I have developed a desire. What is that desire? I want to become a creeper, or a small herb, or a small plant in Vrindavan. Gulma lataushadhinam. Gulma means some small shrub. Lata means creeper. Aushadhi means small herb. Herbs are all normal, very small plants. Why did Uddhava want to become a gulma or a lata or an aushadhi? Why not some grass? Because the gopis, when they would go around in Vrindavan searching for Krishna, they would lose sight of the regular path. When you have a forest path, in the forest, wherever people walk, what happens is the plants don't grow there, only some grasses grow there. That's the general path people take. But the gopis would forget what is the correct path. They would lose sight, and they would be searching, where is Krishna, where is Krishna. They will be going and hugging some tamala tree, thinking it is Krishna. So they would not go on the well-trodden path. They would walk here and there in the forest where all the plants were there, without realizing where they were going. And therefore, Uddhava desired, let me become one of the small shrubs or plants, so that charana renu jusham aham syam, so that I can receive the dust from the lotus feet of the gopis. Now, what is so great about the gopis' devotion to Krishna? Why is Brahmaji desiring to undergo 60,000 years of sacrifice? Why is Uddhava the greatest of the devotees in the Yadava dynasty, whom Krishna appointed as his personal advisor, and whom Krishna chose to take his personal message to the gopis? So why would such great devotee like Uddhava want to take the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis? Because he says, Uddhava says, the quality of the devotional service rendered by the gopis. What is that? He says that ya dustyajam swajanam aryapatham cha hitva bejur mukunda padavim shrutibhir vimrigyam. He says these gopis, they bejur mukunda padavim, they worshipped the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, whose lotus feet Shrutibhir Vimrigyam, whose lotus feet is to be searched out, whose lotus feet is to be known by studying the Vedas, by studying the Shrutis. That lotus feet of Mukunda, these gopis worshipped. And how did they worship? Yadustyajam swajanam aryapatham chahitva. They worshipped that lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, by giving up that which is the most difficult to give up. Two things are the most difficult to give up. What are those two things? One is swajanam, one's own relatives, one's own home. To give up one's blood relatives, one's parents, one's family, one's children, etc. is very, very difficult. Generally, we don't give up our family so easily like that. We don't reject our parents, our children, our spouses like that so very easily. But the gopis gave up all these things. And not only that, they also gave up aryapatam chahitva. They gave up their personal honor and respect in the society. They didn't bother about that. Why? Because when in the middle of the night, when Krishna is standing in Vamsivata, he played on his flute. That time, the gopis came running to him. How did the gopis come running to him? They came running to him in the middle of the night. And when Krishna saw them, Krishna said, "Oh, you all have gopis have all come. What a surprise. What a pleasant surprise. But this is not the right time to come to the forest. It's the middle of the night. So many wild animals will be there. And your relatives will all be searching for you. So now that you have seen all the forest, please go back. Don't stay here for too long. It is very risky." Like this, when Krishna started speaking, the gopis replied to Krishna. They said that Patisutan vaya bhratrubandhavan ativilangya te antyachyutagataha. O Krishna, Achyuta, we have come to you. How have we come to you? Patisutan vaya bhratrubandhavan. Pati, our husbands, Suta, children, Bhratru, our brothers, Bandhavan, and all other relatives, our parents, our father-in-law, mother-in-law, mother, father, everybody, Ati Vilangya. Langana means to jump over. Vilangana means to jump over very strongly. Ati Vilangya, we have crossed over, we have violated their instructions, we have simply jumped over them, and we have come to you. Te antyachyutagataha. We have come to you. We have come near you by crossing over, by ati vilangana, by something which is unsurpassable. We have crossed over and we have come to you. Gatividas tavodgita mohitaha. Why? Why did we come to you? Not because we wanted to see the beauty of the forest in the middle of the night. But for seeing the beauty of the middle of the forest, can we ever cross over the unsurpassable bondage to our families? We cannot do that. Then why did we come here? Tavodgita mohitaha. We have been charmed, we have been enchanted by the wonderful musical notes coming from the playing of your flute. And Gati Vidaha, it is not that you don't know about this, you also know about this. They are telling Krishna, Krishna, you very well know this. Kitava Yoshita Kastyaje Nishi. Kitava, so therefore you are a big cheater, you are making a big drama. You know very well how we have come to you and why we have come to you. So you are a big cheater. Who else other than you can give up women who have come like this in the middle of the night, giving up their family, their relatives, bursting that dam of the family chains, coming and who, if a woman leaves all this and comes to a man, which man can reject such a woman's advances except for the cheater that you are? Because knowing everything, you are refusing to accept us. We can see how the gopis, this is how the gopis, that which is most unsurpassable. They were stopped by their husbands, they were stopped by their parents, their mother-in-law, their father-in-law, their brothers. Everyone tried stopping them, but they did not bother about any of those things. And because they have done this, what happens? The whole world will look down upon them contemptuously. Oh, these women, they have no character. Even today, even in the Western world, even in a place like America, which is supposed to have very free morals, a boy and a girl can live together, can have a live-in relationship, marriage is not required, and all this kind of freely you can give up, you can break up, then take on another boyfriend, girlfriend, and you marry, divorce, marry somebody else, divorce. You marry one girl, divorce her, marry her mother. All these things you can do. Nobody will question. This is all acceptable. But even in that society, when you are married to one person, if a woman is or a man who is married to one person, while being married, if that person develops an illicit relation with another person, that is not acceptable, even today. Some years back, when there was a presidential election going on, there was an election for the president's post going on. At that time, normally in the United States, when the presidential election happens, the president and the vice president, both of them fight the election together. Everybody knows that we are voting to make this person president and this person vice president. It so happened that while the election hot campaigning is going on, the news came out that the vice president candidate, he is having a relationship with another woman while being married to someone else. The moment this news came out, he had to apologize and he had to resign. He said, I'll no more stand for the vice presidential election. Because if he continued, it would have been a big moral hit on the party. Nobody would have voted and 100% the party would have failed. So in order to save the presidential race, the vice president had to resign and step aside. Somebody else was again appointed, and then the election campaign continued. So even in that liberal society, most liberal society where moral values are very loose, even there, when a married person has an illicit relationship, that is not accepted. You can imagine now, 5,000 years ago, in a highly conservative society like India, how much more the people would look down upon a woman who has an illicit relationship with a man while being married to someone else. It is unimaginable, this kind of relationship in the Vedic society. But the gopis did not bother. Arya patham chahitva bhejur mukunda padavim. They said, our Krishna has called, we must go. That's it. They were so attached to pleasing Krishna that for them, everything else faded into insignificance. For them, Krishna was the paramam pramanam. For them, everything else was secondary. Therefore, that is why Uddhava wanted to take the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis on his head. Because for Uddhava to carry out his devotional service to Krishna, there were no obstacles. There was nobody to stop him. There was nobody to tell him, hey, how can you go to Krishna? Whenever he wanted, he can go to Krishna. And in Dwaraka, practically all the time he was with Krishna. And everybody would encourage Uddhava, oh, so nice, you are with Krishna always, please go, please go. Whereas the devotional service rendered by the gopis was characterized by innumerable obstacles and extreme difficulty in executing their devotional service to Krishna, and very, very rarely obtained. It was not easy for them to meet Krishna. It is not that every day they would have rasa dance with Krishna. Very, very difficult because of the obstacles of the conservative values of the society, because of their being married to somebody else, because of the obstacles put forth by their relatives. They had so much difficulty. Despite all the difficulties, they did not give up their devotional service to Krishna. So that devotional service which is performed under great difficulty, in the presence of great obstacles, where the performance of that devotional service is very, very restricted, even in such conditions, if somebody renders devotional service, the quality of that devotional service is considered very high. When everything is very favorable to do devotional service, is very easy. But when the circumstances are difficult, it's not easy. The gopis, they overcame the greatest obstacles in the form of society, convention, relations, the bondage to the family life. All this they crossed over, which is dustyajam. Uddhava is saying it is most difficult to overcome. Therefore, anyone who crosses over the shackles of family life and surrenders himself to Krishna to render devotional service, such a person is highly glorified. It is very, very rare to find such a person. That is why even Brahmaji is saying, 60,000 years I did a lot of tapasya to understand how the gopis are able to render such devotional service to Krishna, even in the face of such great obstacles. You see, even the queens of Dwaraka are not glorified so much, although they had Krishna as their husband. Rukmini Devi, Satyabhama, they are all not glorified as much as the gopis of Vrindavan. Why? Because everybody knew that Rukmini, Satyabhama, their married husband was Krishna. So it is natural that they associate with him. Nobody would prevent him. Hey, Rukmini, how can you be with Krishna? Nobody can ask. It was Rukmini is right. And so therefore, even the queens of Dwaraka would look at the Radharani and other gopis and they would bow down before them. Because even for Rukmini and Satyabhama and such other people, they could not give up their the conventional, they could not break the shackles of convention and the ignominy associated with associating with a man who was not their husband. They would never have been able to do it. Rukmini also wanted Krishna as her husband. But then she was not ready to give up her home and walk out herself. She wanted Krishna to come and take her and then marry her, because that was an accepted form of marriage, the Rakshasa Vivaha. Whereas the gopis, they did not wait for Krishna to come and take them. They stepped out of their homes and went to Krishna. So even the queens of Dwaraka, they say, your devotion, the gopis' devotion, even we cannot perform such devotional service. Therefore, to anyone who overcomes the convention, the normal conventional authorities, normally in this material world, parents, our immediate family members, our teachers, these people are all considered authorities whom we cannot disobey. It's not appreciated. If we don't respect our teacher who has taught us in our first standard to our college, if we don't respect our parents, nobody will respect us. They'll say, what kind of person is he? To break those conventions and to reject all of them and to surrender to Krishna. In the outside material world, people, when a person surrenders to Krishna, rejecting his family and all that, people will say, people will criticize that, look at this fellow, he has rejected his parents, given up his parents, given up his family, given up all, he got educated in college and all that. He gave up all those things and became a devotee. I was traveling once from Vrindavan, I was going to Jaipur. At that time, the construction of the Akshaya Patra kitchen was going on in Jaipur. I had been given the service to oversee that. Every week I would go by bus from Vrindavan to Jaipur and then come back. Once I was going like that, one person came and sat next to me. Then he started talking to me. Where are you talking to me? Where are you from? I said, from Vrindavan. Where are you going? I'm going to Jaipur. All those little bit discussion happened. Then he said, what have you studied? I said, I've done my engineering. Then he looked at me. Then he said, so much education you got. You could have used it for some good service to the nation. Instead of that, you have rejected all this and become sadhu. What is the use? Now, how can I explain to him? I just kept silent and kept quiet. You see, people do not appreciate when we give up our education, our family, and then become devotees. But reality is that kind of devotional service where we overcome these obstacles, normal conventions, and although people may criticize us, we don't bother and we surrender to Krishna. That is glorified even by devotees like Uddhava and even Brahmaji himself. people who are in real spiritual knowledge, they will appreciate. Why? Simply because the normal conventions, the normal value systems are based on the body. That this body is that we have been given, we have been endowed with currently, has been born from a particular couple of living entities, and so therefore we should be obligated to them. This is the normal convention, totally based on bodily concept of life. If we go to the root, the basis of that body is also whose? That basis of that body is the living entity within the body. Number one. Number two, that body that we have got also is composed of what? It is composed of earth, water, fire, air, ether, as well as mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the 8 elements constituting this body. Now, where did these ingredients for this body come from? That is not created by our parents. That has been already existing. Our parents only combined all of them and created one combination of that and created a body which is manifested. That is also not by their choice. They cannot decide whether the child I'm going to have is going to have a male body or a female body. Is it going to be fair complexioned or dark complexion? Is it going to be beautiful or ugly? Is it going to be intelligent or dull? The parents have no control over these things. The parents have only become instruments in our getting a suitable body according to our past karma. This is the reality. So when we look at it from the point of view of the soul, those who are knowledgeable about the soul, they will appreciate when we accept the Supreme Lord as our supreme ultimate authority. Like Kardama Muni, such a Mahayogi, he is saying, Prajapatinam Patir, for me, my Prajapati, my father is not my authority. Mahyam Param Pramanam Bhagavan Anantaha, that unlimited Supreme Lord, Vishnu is my ultimate authority. For me, what he desires, what he wants, is what I will fulfill. I don't bother about what everybody else thinks. Brahmaji, my father, wants me to produce innumerable living entities, but I am not interested in that. What does Vishnu want? Vishnu, Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita that Dharma Vriddho Kamosmi Bharatarshaba, that the family life between a husband and wife is meant to produce children for one of two purposes. Either to produce a child who will become a devotee and go back to Godhead, get liberated and go back to Godhead, or to give birth to a ray of Vishnu who will go on to spread the message of devotional service all over the world. This is Vishnu's desire, and Kardama Muni understood that very well. So he was not interested in giving birth to multiple huge number of living entities as a Prajapati. He said one qualified child, one ray of Vishnu is enough. Why? Because that is what Vishnu wants. And so therefore, Mahyam Param Pramanam Bhagavan Anantaha. Therefore, we have to accept the Supreme Lord's desire as the greatest authority for us, and we should not be carried away by normal conventions based on the material body. This is what we can understand from today's verse. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss, please. Yes, please. Yes. Well, I'm not sure which purport you are referring to. Maybe if you get the purport, then we can read that and understand the context in which Prabhupada is saying. As far as I recall, the living entity, when he falls down as one of the devatas, and later on, according to his activities, according to his karma, he takes different births in different yonis in this material world. That is one thing. Even if he has to fall down as a Brahma, it is not an impossible task, because every moment from the Lord's nose when he is breathing, and from the pores of his body, innumerable universes, unlimited, infinite number of living universes are coming out, and each universe has to have a Brahmaji. So sometimes there are not enough qualified souls to become Brahmaji of that universe. Then Vishnu himself becomes Brahmaji of that universe. Such instances are also happening. So if there is a shortage of supply, because we have to understand the highest post of the universe, you will not get many candidates for that post. The higher the post, you have a pyramid in this world. When the government, if the government makes an advertisement, we are recruiting housekeeping boys. Then, and for say we have 100 vacancies, there will be 10,000 people who will apply for it. Now, if the government says that we are advertises that we are appointing managers, we want 100 managers, maybe 1,000 people will apply for that. And if the government now advertises that we want the CEO for a particular municipality or something like that, how many people will apply? Hardly few, maybe 10 people, 5 people will apply. Why? Because the higher you go, the number of qualified people available for that post reduces. Sometimes there are not enough, there is no living entity who can occupy the post of Brahma also. Such instances also happen. If that is the case, how is it difficult to understand that if a living entity falls down and has to become Brahmaji, there must be enough opportunities available. Sometimes Vishnu himself has to take the position of Brahma. If some living entity is falling down, and also we have to understand that we are eternally fallen souls. It is not that every day some living entity is falling down, keep falling down from the spiritual world. It's not happening like that. Whoever has to fallen down has fallen down already. Therefore, we are all Nitya Baddhas. We are eternally conditioned souls. How to understand this? It's a very difficult concept to understand, because currently our mind is limited to think in terms of time scale, measurable time scale. Eternality is not something which we are used to. This material mind that we have got is not designed to comprehend eternality. If we were to comprehend eternality, then we will not be able to accept the temporary nature of this material world. Then we would not be able to try to enjoy our senses within the limited time available. We will always be thinking, no, I want eternality. How can I be satisfied with just 100 years of survival in this world? Therefore, to give that living entity that facility to be able to artificially enjoy that limited temporary circumstances within which he is put into, that mind does not have that faculty or the ability to understand eternal time. Therefore, it's very difficult to understand how we can be eternally fallen. At the same time, we have fallen down from the spiritual world, and currently it's not that even at present there are living entities falling down. How to understand, how to assimilate all these things? Very difficult, because these are all achintya concepts. These are inconceivable concepts. Achintya khalu ye bhavaha tam starkena na yojayet. One should not try to understand inconceivable subject matter using mundane logic. It is not possible. So we have to accept that we are all eternally fallen conditioned souls who have fallen from the spiritual world. We have to simply accept that. And now that we have fallen, we are going up, traveling up and down from Brahma's position down to the lowest position of an insect. Up to Indragopa, we are going up and down in this material world. That's the reality. Okay?
Prabhupada is giving us an opportunity to go back to Godhead.
Yes.
So in that case, eternally fallen will change into a place where we are elevating our consciousness. And
yes. Eternally fallen is our current condition.
So eternity refers even to the future as well, isn't it, Prabhu? My understanding is that eternity refers to the future also.
That is dependent on the context. We are called eternally fallen. Our current condition is called Nitya Baddha. When we become qualified and go back to Godhead, we will be Sadhana Siddha, equivalent to a Nitya Siddha. That is also there, no? You understand? That is also there. When if you and I become pure devotees, we go back to Godhead, will we be still called Nitya Baddha? No, we will be called a Sadhana Siddha. We will become Siddha Purusha. So, when we are saying Nitya Baddha, it refers to our current condition. Our current condition is called Nitya Baddha. Why? Because we cannot we cannot identify a point in time where we fell down. We cannot identify. For unlimited time we have been in this fallen condition. Therefore, we are known as Nitya-baddha. But we can come out of this. We can liberate ourselves from this Nitya-baddha condition and become Siddha Purushas. It is possible. That provision is also given. And once we go back to Godhead, then that our fall down into this material universe and our stay within this material universe will appear like a blip, like a fraction of a second, as if I just blinked my eye and opened up. Oh, I blinked my eye for a second, I got a sudden vision of being in the material universe and I'm back. That's the experience we'll have in the spiritual world. So we have to understand this Nitya-baddha and all these kind of concepts that are there are for us to understand from our current position in this material world. And this material world is a relative world. Time is also relative in this material world. From the spiritual perspective, it is not Nitya. The spiritual perspective, Nitya is being in the spiritual world. From the spiritual perspective, the time we have spent in this material world is a fraction of a second on the spiritual time scale. In the relative time scale of this material world, that blip of a second appears like an eternity. Cannot even measure how long I have been here. What is called eternal in this material world, in the spiritual world, it is hardly anything. Because in this material world, there is nothing called eternal. Eternal time exists only in the spiritual world. That's a reality. So this understanding of Nitya-baddha is from a relative platform of our current existence in this material world. The moment we are liberated, we are no more part of this material world, we are no more under the influence of the relative time, then the definition of Nitya changes. You understand? So, this calling ourselves Nitya-baddha is from a relative time scale viewpoint. Not from the absolute viewpoint. From the absolute viewpoint, just hardly, not even a second. So, you cannot call hardly a second as eternal, no? Correct, no? So, because in my current condition, the experience that I'm getting, as if a long period of time, I cannot even, that experience that I'm having is as if it is for eternally I've been here. That's the kind of experience I get in the material world. In the spiritual world, the experience is different. And so therefore, when you go to the spiritual world, we are no more called Nitya-baddha. Because that experience there is something else. There I am called a Siddha Purusha. That's how we have to understand. Is that okay? Any other point?
Prabhu, we read from Srimad-Bhagavatam, to populate the universe with living entities, Prajapatis used to produce thousands of living entities.
Yes.
Even in this material world.
Yeah.
That number doesn't appeal to us, how to understand that.
Again, we cannot understand all these things from our current experience. In Kali Yuga, to produce one child itself is so difficult. You need IVF, IUI, so many things. You need fertility clinics, so many things you need. Even modern science has established that human beings' fertility is decreasing with time. What the human being's fertility was 50 years back, it's not what it is now. Even 50 years back, it was very common for people to have 5 children, 6 children, 7 children. My mother's side, they were 6 or 7 brothers and sisters. My father's side also 4 or 5 of them. Very common. Today, you ask a couple to produce 4 or 5 children, they'll be, one itself is so difficult. Earlier, a few years back, the government had a slogan, we too, ours too. Now people are thinking, we too, ours one. Because even that one is so difficult, you have to spend lakhs of rupees, go and do IVF. Even after doing IVF, will get child or not, no guarantee. Because IVF also has got only about 60% of efficiency. 60% means practically 50-50. It may happen, it may not happen. But the way it is touted, it is as if, this is the best thing, technology, this, that, and all that. But the very fact that 50 years back, people without IVF, they used to produce so many children. 5, 6, 7 children was very common. Sometimes even 8, 9, 10 children also used to be there in a family. Very common. But now, even one child, you have to struggle so much. There was a couple in the US, an Indian NRI couple, they are settled in the US. they were not having children, they decided, let us do IVF. And they went to some hospital in America. America, you know, the quality of healthcare and all is very high. 16 times they had IVF, failed every time. Now, what do you say to this? So, even in current, this one, if you see, in the last 50 years itself, you see how fertility has reduced so drastically. That means 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, lakhs of years ago, this is millions of years ago we are talking, beginning of creation. That time people's ability, capabilities and all were completely different. And also because people those days, they were empowered by the Supreme Lord to be able to produce. Therefore, the Prajapatis could produce so many unlimited children, thousands of children, it was possible, which is not possible in today's world. And they are all, that empowerment by Krishna makes them capable of doing that. That's how we have to understand. Even on this earthly planet, there were kings who would have 100 children and all. That was not very uncommon. Today, you talk about a person having 100 children, unimaginable. So, you know, these are all relative things. We have to understand it from that perspective. So, something which is not within our range of experience, when the Shastras are talking about, we should not try to assess it from our current range of experience. That's how we have to look at it. Okay, thank you. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.